Not at all. I just more so thinking about Nick Nurse and the type of coach he is and how he guards me and the schemes and adjustments they make throughout a game. It's pretty impressive, but as an opposing player, it can keep you up at night.
Okay, so we have some breaking news for you guys. It's not news that I anticipated. I don't think this is news that you guys anticipated either. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. And I apologize if the editing in this video seems a little off. I had to edit this video myself because, well, I don't make my editors work for me during the weekend. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. This is the closest we're ever going to get to being given free money. Joel Embiid just needs to score 1 point in Game 7. So here are my picks. I'm going to have Joel Embiid getting 1 point at minimum. And then I have Jaylen Brown with a combined 9.5 rebounds and assists. I'm putting in 25 to hopefully make 75. And I'll keep you guys posted on my Instagram story. And make sure you use my promo code microphone so they can match your initial deposit up to $100. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? This year's Phoenix Suns season wasn't without its drama. I mean, starting all the way from Robert Sarver having to sell the team because of the report that came out about him, all the way to Matt Ishbia purchasing the team and then swinging one of the craziest trades that we had no idea was coming to us by trading 4 first-round picks in a 2028 pick swap, in addition to Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and Cam Johnson to the Brooklyn Nets so they could get Kevin Durant. This was one hell of a swing, and to do this within 24 hours of purchasing a team is lunacy. I don't think we've ever seen this before in NBA history, and I really feel like people don't talk about this enough. If there's one thing that we learned from this particular moment, it's that Matt Ishbia is aggressive as hell when it comes to constructing his team. He pretty much mortgaged his entire future to bring in a Hall of Famer that's 34 years old, closer to the end of his career than the beginning of his career, clearly, and is a few seasons removed from an Achilles tear. My initial reaction to this is, wow, you're giving up 4 future first round picks for a player that at any moment could potentially stop playing. I know it's hard for us to conceptualize the end of Kevin Durant, but I don't think you guys understand. Whenever you usually tear your Achilles, you're done. And the players that have torn their Achilles, the best example here being Dominique Wilkins, because Dominique Wilkins had a similar Achilles tear to Kevin Durant. And in that particular case, he was productive for 4 more seasons. And Dominique Wilkins has a very similar situation as Kevin Durant because he tore his Achilles when he was 32. Kevin Durant tore his Achilles when he was 31. What I'm trying to say is Matt Ishbia essentially mortgaged the future of the Phoenix Suns to potentially win a championship within the next 2 years. And if it's past that, then even better. This was coming on the heels of a very dramatic season for the Phoenix Suns. I mean, since the 2021 NBA Finals, things really started to trend downward for this team. There was a lot of criticism about the construction of this team. First being Chris Paul signing a 4-year, $120 million contract extension in his age 36 season, which I don't believe has ever been done before in NBA history. And I honestly lauded Chris Paul as a businessman because I could imagine it had been very tempting for him to accept a buyout and chase a ring, but he didn't do that. And that's before we get to all the DeAndre Ayton drama, just to give you an idea what was going on with this team. Following their NBA Finals appearance, the Phoenix Suns had 2 very talented players from the 2018 NBA draft class that they had to re-sign. And they immediately gave Mikal Bridges a max rookie contract extension, but they didn't do that for DeAndre Ayton. They strung him along all season long, and there was a question about whether or not they were actually going to re-sign him. And last offseason, DeAndre Ayton actually almost left the Phoenix Suns. At this point, he signed a contract sheet with the Indiana Pacers during restricted free agency. And we mentioned this before. This would have been remarkable for DeAndre Ayton's career. I understand that he's on a really good team right now, but when you're the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft, and you have the potential to be one of the best big men in the NBA, believe it or not, you actually need to take some time to work on your craft and work on your game. Unfortunately for DeAndre Ayton, he was placed in a situation where the team that selected him with the number 1 overall pick wasn't necessarily focused on developing him as a player because their championship window was swung wide open very shortly upon his arrival. So instead, you had DeAndre Ayton playing very traditional big man-like roles. You didn't necessarily see him place an emphasis on doing stuff like developing a three-point jump shot, for instance. So I could understand the frustration from DeAndre Ayton's point of view, and I could understand why the Phoenix Suns were kind of hesitant about extending him, but at this point their hands were tied. They matched the contract sheet from the Indiana Pacers, and with that came an inability to trade DeAndre Ayton throughout the season. And throughout the season, you would see multiple instances of DeAndre Ayton getting into it with his head coach, Monty Williams. Now, remember that, because this is fairly significant. There will be a lot of questions about DeAndre Ayton's work ethic throughout the NBA playoffs, not only this year, but last year as well, as DeAndre Ayton was benched when the Phoenix Suns got blown out by the Dallas Mavericks in the playoffs last year. And thanks to a huge friend of the channels and a man that I highly recommend you subscribe to, Legends Productions, you could tell the lip reading between DeAndre Ayton and his teammates during their final games of the season. Take a look. So now the Suns are in a very difficult situation. I immediately said that they should run this team back. I mean, Kevin Durant is a remarkable player. Chris Paul might still have some left in the tank. This is despite there being some rumors about the Phoenix Suns being willing to trade Chris Paul and also being willing to trade DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton's no longer safe anymore. They could trade him without any problem whatsoever. And Madishbia has also proven to us at this point that he's an overly aggressive owner that'll do whatever it takes to get his Phoenix Suns a championship. But is he perhaps a little too aggressive? Because last night we found out that the Phoenix Suns would be willing to trade Chris Paul. As a matter of fact, this is coming from Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective, saying that according to Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective, ESPN's Tim McMahon says that he expects the Suns to aggressively shop Chris Paul on the trade market. McMahon called it pretty likely that CP3 will play for a different team in 2023 and 2024, and added that he believes the Suns will try to trade Paul before June 28th, which is when his guaranteed salary goes from $15.8 million to $30.8 million. Chris Paul is under contract through 2025, but per Spotrac, only $15.8 million of his deal is currently guaranteed for next season, and none of it is guaranteed for 2024 to 2025. Chris Paul is definitely regressing and is no longer the player that he once was, but he is a player with a tremendous basketball IQ that is also extremely overpaid, that has had severe injury issues, particularly in the playoffs. And I don't necessarily know who the hell you could trade for this guy at this point. I don't know if he's an asset or if he's an albatross. I think you'd have to package him with a first-round pick or an asset to get rid of him. And I don't know if the Phoenix Suns have an asset to package with Chris Paul at this point. I think you're stuck with him. But the rumor aside, DeAndre Ayton was also brought into this as well. And this is also coming to us from Tim McMahon, citing that the relationship between DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns has been awkward for the past 2 years, due in part to Phoenix's reluctance to award Ayton with a maximum extension of his rookie contract. They were essentially forced to pay up for Ayton when the Indiana Pacers signed him to a 4-year, $133 million offer sheet as a restricted free agent last summer, leaving the Suns with the options of matching the deal or losing the 2018 number 1 pick for nothing. The relationship between Ayton and Williams publicly frayed after the coach benched the big man during the aforementioned Game 7 loss to the Mavericks, and then he refused to discuss Ayton post-game or during the next day's exit interviews. Ayton revealed early in training camp that he did not have a single conversation with his coach all summer, even after signing his max contract. Sources told ESPN that Ayton's teammates have shared their coach's frustration with what they perceive to be an inconsistent effort and aggression from the 7-footer. So the Suns clearly have a dilemma. Everybody knows that changes need to be made at this point, and there's a lot of directions that you could go in terms of making changes, and it looks like they already did make some changes. They fired a team executive within the past 24 hours, and now there's this question about, do you fire the winningest coach in the NBA for the past 3 seasons that took your team to an NBA Finals in his first season, and then won Coach of the Year in his second season, and then had his worst season this past year with a top-heavy, injury-prone team that swung a huge trade in the middle of the season that had a ton of distractions throughout the season? Well, it seems like the Phoenix Suns have officially made their decision, and it's a decision that is being heavily scrutinized throughout the NBA, and it's a very polarizing decision because some people love it and some people don't. And it's that according to Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania, the Phoenix Suns have officially dismissed Monty Williams, sources tell ESPN. Monty Williams was a 2-time NBA Coach of the Year in 4 seasons with the Suns, including a trip to the 2021 NBA Finals. The Suns lost a 6-game series to the Nuggets in the Western semifinals. My initial reaction to this is, wow, because Monty Williams came in and took a team that wasn't succeeding at all whatsoever and helped them carve out an identity. He really helped the Phoenix Suns take the next step, and they didn't necessarily need to make a huge trade for a significant player to do so. Even before they brought in Chris Paul, the Phoenix Suns went undefeated in the NBA bubble. It was a huge controversy that they didn't make it to the playoffs, and then they swung a trade for Chris Paul that offseason and paired him with Monty Williams, which was a coach he had success with during his time with the New Orleans Pelicans. So I thought it was a very cute fit. Now, some fans are saying that the reason this happened was because Monty Williams can't make real adjustments in big playoff games. There was back-to-back blowout losses in elimination games. He didn't seem to be vocally responsible as a coach. And, of course, there's the situation with DeAndre Ayton. He wasn't able to get the best out of DeAndre Ayton at all whatsoever. Whereas other people are saying, what the hell, this man has been so successful over the past 3 seasons. You quite literally just got him Kevin Durant and a top-heavy roster, and you didn't give him a chance to have a full off-season with this incredible roster that you built for him. And you may have been a little bit too quick to cut him loose. I mean, if you truly think about it, Kevin Durant only played 8 games throughout the regular season ever since the Phoenix Suns traded for him. And then following that, he played in 11 games in the playoffs. I mean, that isn't a lot of time to really figure out chemistry once you traded for one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. And that's my initial reaction. So there's arguments for both sides. And to be honest, both sides are very reasonable. At the end of the day, if you really want to continue to move forward with DeAndre Ayton, the dynamic between DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams just doesn't work. I mean, you need a coach that's respected by each and every single player on that roster. I feel like Kevin Durant was kind of lukewarm about Monty Williams as well. And my guess is usually when a firing like this occurs, it's because there's a much better candidate available and an upgrade available. And in this case, the top rumor we're hearing is that the Phoenix Suns are going to be very aggressive in pursuing Tyronn Lue, which is a head coach that I am a huge fan of. I mean, originally when the Clippers hired Ty Lue, I just perceived him as a head coach that was carried to an NBA championship by LeBron James. But since then, there's been multiple instances, especially during his time with the Los Angeles Clippers, where he's made masterful adjustments in the NBA playoffs. And as a result of those adjustments, he has won his team series. The main issue for Ty Lue has been the fact that his best players just haven't been available when he needed them the most, and it's very obvious he's a really good coach. The other option is a rumor that I am kind of starting over here on this channel based upon an interview that I showed you at the beginning of this video. And that's, what if the Phoenix Suns are pursuing Nick Nurse, who clearly is another coach that can make masterful adjustments when you do give him a proper roster? Because at the end of the day, Kevin Durant once said this about Nick Nurse.
Not at all. I just was more so thinking about Nick Nurse and the type of coach he is and how he guards me, and the schemes and adjustments they make throughout a game is pretty impressive, but as an opposing player, it can keep you up at night.
There's a lot of directions that the Phoenix Suns can go in making changes to their roster. I mean, for all you know, DeAndre Ayton gets traded anyway. But I want to know in the comments section, especially if you're a Suns fan, do you think this was too aggressive of a decision? Do you think Matt Ishbia is being way too aggressive in trading for Kevin Durant and firing Monty Williams? And who knows what else is going to happen this offseason? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.